One Percenter Podcast with Sam Bakhtiar, bringing you the 1% knowledge to help you reach your full potential. Learn what it takes to rise above the 99% and become a one percenter.
Hey guys, what's going on? This is Sam Bakhtiar, the host of One Percenter Podcast. We're out of the garage today. I thought I'd change it up on you. We're in a piano room of the house. We're chilling here. My boy Ryan Williams. What's happening, brother?
Dude, thanks for having me, man.
How you doing, man?
Good, appreciate it.
So Ryan, first thing first, former Navy SEAL. I want to talk about that a little bit because that's so fascinating. We were talking off camera how being a Navy SEAL, that discipline, everything that you learn in there, it can apply into business. You know, we talked about how Jocko right now is like, you know, from Navy SEALs now he's leading businesses and leadership. You know, we talk about David Goggins, you know, doing the same thing. And now I want to deep really hard into what you're doing and all that. So, but before that, let's talk about your childhood a little bit.
Oh yeah, so we grew up really poor, but
Where'd you grow up?
Santa Rosa, California.
Okay.
Yeah, but I never went to any school longer than 2 years. I never had any friends longer than a year or so. So I grew up kind of alone a lot, which is fine with me.
You have any brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have a brother that's 4 years younger than me and a sister that's 4 years or 8 years younger than me. We're not real close though. I actually haven't talked to them in like 10 years.
Okay.
They're great people. I'm not real big on family. You know what I mean?
So you just always been like your own thing. You're one of those Navy SEAL guys, like Rambo kind of guys,
No,
right?
I was the opposite growing up. I was like this weird little like robot kid because my default mentality is almost like, you ever watch a Big Bang Theory?
Yeah.
It's like Sheldon. Like that was my default was like Sheldon. Like irony was lost on me. I didn't understand humor. I didn't understand sarcasm at all. Jokes were completely like, I just didn't get it. I was just weird little robot kid.
It's crazy because I've known you for a while and you're so social. Every time we're like in a social place, you're talking to everybody, you're hanging out, but growing up you weren't like that, huh?
Well, I had to learn that because I was always like an outsider at every school I went to, and I wanted to be cool. I wanted to fit in and just like everybody. And I was like, how are these people doing this? How are they being funny? How are they getting people to laugh? So I had to actually reverse engineer like what humor was. So I'd watch my friends that were funny, and I'm like, okay, what is it? The content of what they're saying? Is it the context of how they're saying it? Is it their tone? Is it the delivery? Is it the timing? Is it the spacing? Is it like what is it about them or this situation that's actually funny? And I had to distill it down, and I crashed and burned so many times where I'd say something I thought was funny.
Nobody was laughing.
Dude, yeah, it was
bro,
so
that's
bad.
Yeah, you speaking to the choir, bro.
Right.
I do it on a daily basis with my wife. She just looks at me like, you're an idiot.
Oh, same. Yeah. I think I'm really funny now, but yeah, there's still some miss. But that growing up like that, whereas, a little robot and having to purposely learn humor and learn humans and learn interaction has helped me a lot, because now those same tools that I developed at that age have helped me understand like social media. So like dissecting social media, what's funny, what's relevant, what's interesting on social media is the same way. So almost every time I post something, there's always at least one small test that I'm doing in there, whether that's a hashtag or a certain length of time or a certain like time of day, the post content. Like I'm always testing something. Because everything's always changing. I'm always trying to get better. So that little like mindset thing that was it was a challenge initially as a kid ended up being one of my biggest assets now, because I can go in and be social and talk to people. And dude, in business, like it's relationships.
That's everything.
Yeah.
Relationships are everything. So you kind of didn't really go to school. You dropped out your senior year.
Yeah, I went to 5 different high schools in 3 different states.
That must have been tough.
It was one of the things I hated at the time.
So every time you go, you're like I said, you're an outsider, you're a new student.
Yeah, and I was 15, but you hate everything when you're 15 anyway,
True
though.
that.
So I would rather go through something like that and hate it. But what I learned from that is that I was able to recreate myself every year. So if I was, a dork one year,
Got it.
I was like,
Got
okay,
it.
but I
The
didn't.
new environment, new
exactly.
you know
I
what
could
I
be a
mean?
new person, which
Yes.
allowed me to progress as how I viewed myself every year. So I'd establish a new identity and be like,
I like that.
because that's a hugely
You took it-
formative
yeah,
time as
use
a
it to your
kid.
advantage.
Yeah. So I was able to grow a lot because I wasn't held back by who people thought I was. I was like, hey, I didn't like this thing about myself last year. I'm gonna go ahead and change it and just execute on it. And that's who I was. And you're changing every 2 months at that age. So I was able to progress quite a bit because I was able to throw away the old me every year.
What made you decide to not finish school?
Well, I went to all these different schools, and my credits didn't transfer over because they're so complex. And I went to a private school for a little while in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I transferred over to a public school there, and they wouldn't release my my credits. They wouldn't release my transcripts until my mom paid them for the full year. But I transferred because the school sucked, and I'm like, I'm not gonna make my mom pay whatever it was, like $8,000 to get my transcripts. So I learned this halfway through my senior year, and they're like, well, you're just gonna have to do your first half of your senior year over again. I'm like, well, I'm not doing that. I'm dropping out. I was 17, and they're like, well, you're never gonna get in the military if you drop out. At that time, like, I don't care. I'm never going in the military. So I left school halfway through my senior year, got my GED in like a month or something, and then I went to Mammoth as a snowboard bum for a year, which is a ton of fun. Went nowhere though. I was a jet ski bum for a year in Havasu. That was a lot of fun, but again, going nowhere. And then I was 19, and I'm like, well, I'm 19 years old. I have some semblance of like who I am, but I really want to find out where I want to go. And to find out where I wanted to go, I wanted to find out who I was as a man, as a person, like to put myself in context within the world. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to find the hardest thing I could to do. And in my mind, and this is like 1996 or 7, so like there wasn't a whole lot of info on the internet. And so in my mind, I was like, well, I can go try to climb Mount Everest, which is like $50,000 or something, or I can go, in the military and be a Navy SEAL, because they have great branding. It's like, if you talk about top tier military, there's a lot of great units that do amazing shit, but the teams just have better branding. So I was like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. And
well, Navy SEALs, everybody knows Navy SEAls are the baddest of the bad, right?
Well, we're pretty cool, but we're not nearly as cool as like everybody thinks we are.
Really?
No, there's other dudes that are like just as badass that I think do a better job of handling the publicity. Mm-hmm. We've kind of been screwing ourselves over the last couple of years in the spotlight. There's a lot of things going on that aren't portraying us most favorable.
And I want to get into that. I want to get into that a little later, sure. Man. But yeah, because for commoners like me, when they say, well, who's like the most trained and most elite, Navy SEALs is automatically
that's the branding, right?
Yes, that's the branding, right? It's kind of like the Mercedes, right? Mercedes, might be okay, but it's not like the greatest car in the world, right?
Right.
Got it.
Yeah, it's funny, man. But for me, I was like, I wanted to, as a 19-year-old kid, I wanted to respect myself as much as I respected those guys. And that's why I went into the program. I had no intentions of being career military, or I just went in to test myself. It wasn't even like a patriotic thing, because this is before 9/11, so we hadn't been at war in like 20
Have you
years.
always been, someone who wanted to push your limits? Because you went like snowboarding and jet ski, that kind of stuff. Those are kind of like a extreme sport, if you will. Have you been somebody who always went like, okay, let me see what I can do?
No. But I've always been wanting to chase experiences. So throughout life, I've always been very conscious of, death and where we fit in the world. So for me, it's a very clear equation that the purpose of life is to have fun. Now, how you define fun is totally, up to the individual. But for me, it's having unique experiences that enrich your life. And those are going to be different at different times in your life too. Because in the beginning, it's like, it might be, a material thing. At the end, it might be having a kid. It might be, getting fulfillment in some other thing. But it's constantly a moving target, right? But it's always a journey, man.
So what did you learn? What were some of your biggest lessons you learned? Because you were in the Navy SEALs for what, 10, 11 years?
10 years, yeah.
Okay. What were some of the biggest lessons you learned, being in the Navy SEALs and training at that high level?
I think probably the most surprising thing to an outsider is that being in the program, literally almost everybody you meet on the street can make it through buds. Like the physical process is not going to kill you. Like some random person walking down the crosswalk, you could pull them out, put them into buds. They can go through a day of it and they're not going to die. Like they're not going to have fun. It's going to suck. It's going
to be hard, but if they push through, they can make it.
Well, they're going to survive. You know what I mean? So if you don't give them quitting an option, like they'll get to the end of the day and they'll be alive. They're not going to actually die. But that's the thing that most people don't understand. They think that buds it's so hard physically. It's so hard that people can't do it. But that's not the reality. The reality is that the hard part is getting trashed that day and getting up the next day and be like, you know what? I'm gonna do it again voluntarily. 4 o'clock in the morning, all this stuff. And then
so the physical part is hard, but the mental part seems like is more challenging. Than
exactly.
The physical part.
And that's so there's that saying that buds is 90% mental and 10% physical. And before I went in, I didn't get that. I'm like, oh, that's just bullshit. That's what people say. But I didn't realize it until I got there that it's totally true. But not in the way that you would think, where like you have to be like this stoic person and get through it, because everybody deals with challenges in their own way. But the fact is that the physical pain and challenges are just a way for the program to reach into your mind and have you overcome this obstacle. And that obstacle is getting through the program. And it's like any goal, though. You have this big goal of, I want to be a Navy SEAL. That means I need to get through this long ass program. So then you chop it up by monthly, weekly, daily, down to like, you're literally counting down 15-minute sections. Like I can be in the water for 15 minutes. I know I get a break. I got 3 hours till the next chow session, and then you get out. But it's taking this big goal. Same thing in business, and chopping it up.
Isn't that the same? Yeah, I was going to say, man, just exactly the same how life works.
Yeah, it is.
How business works. It's
That's
grit,
exactly
resilience.
Yeah, exactly.
Discipline. And how you deal with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what else did you learn, man? I'm just curious because I just think Navy SEALs are cool.
One thing I found interesting too, because I did 3 deployments at SEAL Team 1, and then I went and I was an instructor in 3rd phase for 3.5 years too. And then I went and I was a civilian GS position as an instructor in SQT, which is like the following. So it's like 6-7 months of buds, 6-7 months of SQT, and then you get your trident. So I was teaching for a long time. And when we're doing that, one of the main things I found is that these people they don't quit when you think they're going to quit. Like you would think, looking on the outside, like, oh man, when something gets hard, like doing log PT or doing sprints, they're going to quit at the maximum height of the suckness, right? And people do, but it's a very small percentage. When most people quit is when it gets easy again, and then you ramp it up to hard again. So like we had way more people quit during lunch and dinner and breakfast than at the height of any of the evolutions. And it's because they get 2 things. Number one,
complacent.
Well, it's they don't want to give up on their team when they're in the height of it. So like, but it's not about them. Now they're going through it for their team and for their people because they don't want to let them down. But in their mind, they've already quit. They're just riding it out for their friends and their teammates, which is a powerful concept. But then once they get warm again and a little bit comfortable, and you got a half hour and they're getting sleepy, and then the instructor comes up and goes, hey, hit the fucking serve. Oh, it's just cold and miserable, and you just got warm, and you're like, oh, nope, ding, ding, ding. That's when people quit. We had more people quit in morning muster. They just gets up at like 4:30 in the morning. They're like, you know what? I'm just not doing it today.
I don't get that. For me, it's like, okay, you signed up for this. What the fuck you think was going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
So you might as well just go with the flow. Just do it, no matter how uncomfortable you get. I get it. I know it's going to be tough. I know it's going to be, not cozy or whatnot. You signed up for it,
right?
You might as well just give it your all.
Yeah.
If 100%. is a choice, then why give anything less?
Well, I think people do give their 100%. It's just everybody's 100% is different because people have different comfort levels.
Got it.
And I think you have to be a little bit like sadistic to want to put yourself through that. But the fact is, if you didn't allow people to quit, you like nobody would quit because you don't like you can make it. It's not going to kill you. It's just, do you have what it takes to get up and voluntarily put yourself through that every day? It's the same thing with business. Like
that makes sense.
The stuff that you're doing here, and Andy and Ed and all those guys are doing, that is like the Navy SEAL level of business, and it takes a similar amount of fortitude and consistency and hard work and dedication to make it to that level. And it's a very similar mindset from what I've seen from guys in the teams to the guys in the different groups, and it's, I don't know, that's why I feel at home, you know?
Tell me one of the coolest things you ever done as a Navy SEAL.
Probably the day I graduated and the day I got out of the Navy.
Yeah, that was like, I'm out, right?
Yeah. Well, it's because it's like after a while, it is cool. It's an amazing, life-changing experience. It's been a huge part of what shaped me. But at the same time, after you do it long enough, it just becomes a job, like any other
It
job.
becomes monotonous.
Yeah, and then you eventually want to do something else. And for me, that was the 10-year mark, because you get retirement at 20. And I was like, do I want to do another enlistment of 4 years and try to reach my goals that I set for myself there? Then I'm like, okay, now am I really getting out at 14 and get no retirement, or I can do another 6 after that and then get a retirement? But that would put me at like, 39. I'm like, do I really want to start over on the outside at 39? So I got out at 10, and it was great choice for me. But I still feel like some of my other business friends who were started business when I started military stuff, I feel like I'm 10 years behind some of my peers on this stuff, man. It's frustrating.
But you got the experience, man. You got the experience, and you said you were all about experience. Now, when you left Navy SEAL, now you're a civilian. How did that feel? Did you feel like everybody else was as like lazy and everybody else is like real slow-mo?
A lot of people talk about that, but I didn't. It's hard to find good people to work with anywhere, and the military is no exception. There are some real turd team guys I know, and they're Navy SEALs, but they're total turds. It's just kind of, it's a smaller percentage, but you do have like, there's cool team guys, there's nerd team guys, there's skinny in shape, fat team guys. Like, it really is a broad section of people. You just have a larger bell curve that fall into a standard. But it's been interesting to me to see that I have more fun on the outside, and I feel closer now to a lot of guys in the entrepreneurship space, because for me, one of the reasons I got out is that I always want to be progressing and learning more and doing more. And one of the limiting factors in a lot of guys that I see that do high level military stuff, or even athletes at a high level, they get used to a certain level of performance and kind of like ass kissing a little bit. So when they get out of the military or get out of pro ball or whatever it is, they have a real hard time stepping down, removing their ego, and being like, hey, I'm moving into a new role, a new market, and I know nothing about this, and opening themselves up to actually learning. So what I found is that it's hugely beneficial, and it can create a lot of really, momentous things in your life. But at the same time, when you move on to something else, you have to, same thing I did as a kid, completely scrub who you were, take what you learned, start at the bottom of something new, and remove your ego enough to actually learn from people who are above you to progress in that space. And I see a lot of guys have a really hard time with that. So that's why I feel more closely connected to a lot of guys in the entrepreneur space, because they have that thing of constantly progressing, like never being good enough, always trying to do more and reach more. Whereas a lot of guys in the military space, they're like, they're like, oh, I put out for this, I achieved this, this title, whatever it happens to be. And they're like, oh, that's who I am. And they never progress beyond that.
Got it.
It's kind of like a different version of like Peaked in High School.
You kind of see that in the movies too.
Yeah.
So when you get out, what was the first thing? Did you start a business? Did you go work for somebody? What happened?
So I started my first clothing line in 2007 with a buddy of mine. It was called Forge Clothing, and I started maybe like 9 months before I got out, and I got out in 2008, and I was fortunate that I took that GS position at SQT, and that was basically my day job. And we grew the company. I sold my half of it in 2012. But my partner and I had a running joke that we volunteered to the clothing line. We had our main job because it made no money, and it got fairly big, and was fairly well known, especially in the military space. But it wasn't making the money that it should have been making.
Why not?
We just didn't know what we were doing. It was totally our fault.
Your first time starting out.
First time in business, and there wasn't a whole lot of people to learn from at that time as well, because the internet wasn't as big. Instagram didn't exist.
I'm sure there's somebody right now that teaches that.
Exactly. Yeah, and it would have helped us out a lot to have been able to learn from those people. And dude, we almost crashed and burned so many times. Like we lost like $70,000 that first year, which is all the money we had to put into it. And thankfully, we started to figure things out like right before we completely ran out of money, and then cranked it up a bit. But it was a huge learning process for us.
So you sold that in 2012.
Yeah.
After 5 years of being in business, what did you do after that?
I started another apparel line, just a small one, just to kind of have fun. It's called Disciples of Iron. I sold that 2014. I had a kettlebell company too that was it's called Demon Bells, had faces on them. So I started that, ran that for a couple of years, and then sold that. And then after I sold all those things, I was like, what am I going to do now? And I realized that because I was running production and artwork and all the stuff for my own lines, and we had friends that had businesses, and they had real problems getting apparel produced. And so I would always just run it on the side for my friends. And after I sold everything else, I was like, well, maybe this is something I can do to help people out, and maybe there's a way to make an actual business out of it. So I started doing it, and man, it's been a hell of a learning process, because I've learned the last year and a half that growing a business and reaching a certain apex of like, I can get it as big as I can get it with me. And now having to completely shift focus, and now I have to build a team. So for me to get my business bigger than it was last year, it's completely different. My role is completely different than it was 2 years ago. And I've had to reinvent myself again and take on some of these things that I was completely avoiding before, like leadership. I didn't want employees. I was a bad leader. Even in the military, I was a mid-grade dude. I was just a guy like either a sniper or a 60 gunner, and I would just go and kind of do what I was told, but I wasn't in a leadership position at all. I was actually avoiding it. I didn't even want to do team sports as a kid. I hated people relying on me.
You're just a loner, brother.
I really was, yeah. And but now through this process, I realized like my big goal that I have is I want to build a big company. And in order to do that, I maxed out what I could do myself, and it had to be a team. And now I have to go back and address these deficiencies that I had as a leader, and I don't want to say it as a human, but I've learned so much from that. And the interesting thing for me is that thing that I hated and I avoided and I thought I was really bad at has now become the thing that gives me the most fulfillment. So now when I'm building my team, like I love going to the office and talking with our people and learning from them and taking their input and creating and building this machine that's built of all the parts that everybody brings together and brings to the table. And we're constantly just throwing everything on the table and being like, hey, what's working, what's not working? Let's pull everything out, let's throw in some new stuff and recreate it together. And for me, like there's success and then there's fulfillment. And I've found that gives me fulfillment. So it's completely changed my goals really in the next couple of years. But yeah, it was, and I sucked at it before. Jocko's stuff actually helped me out a lot with like the leadership podcast.
Did you read both of his books?
What's that?
Did you read his book?
I didn't. No, I'm actually not big on books because it just seems like I don't often read. I want to, but it's such like an inefficient way to process information.
You know we can listen to it now, right? I'm just pulling your leg.
Totally. But I found like I learned so much from like I was listening to your podcast with Andy on the way up here. I found that listening to podcasts is such an easier and faster way to absorb relevant information.
Because you get the nuggets. Yes. You get nuggets. You know what I mean? The book, you have to read the whole story. You know, you get to read the whole book to get a few nuggets. Where in like, you know, in half an hour, you get 5 or 6 nuggets right to you, delivered to you. Yeah. That's why podcasts are blowing up.
Dude, I think it's great. I mean, I feel like a loser because I should be reading more books and I know the value in it. But like growing up, being a loner, that's all I did was read books.
You've done pretty good for yourself. Now, your company's name, Industry Threadworks, okay? Tell me, when you started that again?
I've been doing it on the side since like 2008, but I didn't create it as its own company, I want to say 2015 maybe.
So you got serious about it in 2015?
Yeah. Create it as its own entity then, because I wasn't sure if it was going to work. It was like, you know,
it was just a side business that now it's flourished to a real business.
Yeah, and that niche literally didn't exist before we created it.
So what is that niche?
The niche is we're a translator between like what the creative side of what the brand wants and what the mechanical side of what the print shop actually needs to produce that garment. And that's a huge disconnect because what the brand thinks they want is not, they don't know how to describe it in terms that the print shop needs because they don't speak the same language. And the print shop doesn't understand what the brand needs because they're not on the creative side.
So true.
Yeah, it's problematic. But every single business in the world has this problem.
I feel like it's a website. You know, for a website, you need 2 guys, right? You need a programmer and you need a designer. Exactly. And a programmer doesn't design language, and the design guy doesn't. You know, so it's crazy. So one of them wants to make it really pretty, and the other one was like, well, that's not going to work. It needs to be this way. And I'm like, well, that's ugly. And, you know, it's always the whole thing.
Yeah, it's the communication, and that's where we live. We're basically a translator between the creative side of the brand and the mechanical side of the print shop. And that's where we live. But it all comes back to that, like, you know, being an socially awkward kid and having to understand the dialogue and what the communication patterns are. And now these things that I hated growing up in these situations now have become my biggest assets that we're building everything on. So yeah, it's full circle.
Now you also are a fulfillment center, right?
Yeah, that's something we started building out because our clients needed it. And at first I was telling them, hey, here's how to do it. Here's how we do it for our own stuff. You should do it. And here's how you handle customer service. Here's how you do everything. I was giving them the templates because, like, you guys control it and you can do it, and here's how. And then I realized that most of them weren't very good at it.
Or they don't have the time and the energy and all that.
Yeah, and I realized that the energy that we put into the tiny mechanicals of, like, down to the way we interact with our clients, customers, when we do customer service for them, like, it's so minute detail that most of our clients operate very broad stuff. Yeah. So they usually don't get down to
that's your niche. You know that inside out, you know. So, you know, for them to do that, they have to, like, kind of get in your business and all that. When you already have it, you can offer it, you know, and all that. And, you know, and I think I overheard you talk to Ed and you fulfill his stuff. Right. You do fulfillment for him.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what it's been, is that, like, I finally came to the conclusion that instead of telling our clients how to do it and having them do it, we're just going to do it for them, because now that we have a decent sized infrastructure, it's actually cheaper for them to use us and kind of fractional ownership of our team than it is for them to build out their own team, train their own people, pay for their own warehouse, pay for the stuff.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
So it's been interesting, especially because, like, as far as margins, most apparel lines operate like a 400% markup, right? So if you're getting a t-shirt for $20, you should be getting that t-shirt for $5. So it's around 400% markup. At scale, so when you're doing an apparel line that's like doing $400,000 in gross sales, you're going to operate around a 40 to 50% margin on that. But once you scale up to $1 million, your overhead, like past 700,000, your overhead gets big. Because you can only go past about 400,000 before you start needing a team, a warehouse, all these things. So there's distinct barriers at different points. And since we've gone through all those barriers, I know what the limitations are and what the roles and responsibilities are they need to build out. And I see it all the time. Like, a lot of these brands will max out these certain things because they don't know what to do. They don't know how to change. They don't know how to build a team. So once they get past $1 million, they're usually their net is around 25% instead of 40 or 50. So now we can do, because we have a bigger infrastructure, we can keep them at roughly like 30% margin, and they can scale as big as they want to without ever running into any roadblocks, no humps,
losing that margin.
Exactly, yeah. So it's been interesting because we're the only ones in this space right now, and it's good because we're the only ones, and it's awesome. But at the same time, there's nobody to learn from, so we're having to create all these things on our own. So it's been like a lot of roadblocks internally, but you know, I think the right lessons come at the right time.
Yeah.
So thankfully, we've been able to learn these.
But once you have it, you have the roadmap.
Yeah, yeah. Now we have the roadmap, and now we got a team that is, dude. They're one of the things I'm most proud of on this entrepreneurship journey is figuring out how to build and motivate and communicate and lead a team, because that's the thing that gives me the most fulfillment, and that's the thing that is going to build our company where I want.
Is that the main reason you joined the Arete syndicate?
Honestly, I joined that because I felt alone. Like I was in the entrepreneurs organization, EO group, and it's cool and it's great, but they're not as aggressive, and a lot of them are looking for a different type of balance than I want in my life. And they're like, well, I want to like worry about my pool and what my wife thinks about my pool, and we have meetings about this dude's pool, and I'm like, bro,
Are you serious?
right? I'm like, I don't have time. Like, I'm still trying to build and grow. Like, I mean, maybe this dude makes way more money, and that's the big concern in his life. But like, right, I'm not at a point where I'm concerned about my own pool, let alone your pool, right? So Andy and I were DMing about it, and he's like, hey, I got something that's, you know, so I was looking, and I was like, hey man, like I'm having a real problem finding peers in this. Like, do you have a group like that you know of that you know is a little more aggressive? And he's like, man, give me a couple months. We're actually putting something together I think would be good. And it turned out to be the Arete Syndicate. I was like, bro, I don't care what it is. Let's do it. Yeah, but it was it's a big journey, man. But that is one of the reasons that we've been able to grow and scale so well now, is because it identified a lot of things that I sucked at in my own life that I didn't even know I was bad at. Like I was doing that whole thing with like, oh, my employees and it's their fault. And
Oh God,
dude, it was the worst. It was my fault. It's totally my fault.
You know as well as anybody, man. There's no such a thing as bad soldiers. There's only bad generals. You know, I mean, I know, I used to be like that, but once I took like responsibility, man, everything that happens in my business is my fault. Whether I didn't hire the right person, I didn't train them right, I didn't reprimand them correctly, I didn't communicate correctly. It all comes from the top, So what are some of the biggest challenges you have had over the last few years growing your business, and other than building a team, and other than scaling?
Finding creative solutions to difficult problems. Because problems come up every
That's
day.
life,
Yeah. But one key thing that I found was our biggest, probably my like biggest crux in business that I've faced so far, was that kettlebell company. And the first order that I had, I was going through foreclosure on my house because I bought a house with a stripper and it didn't go well.
Wait a second, you bought a house with a stripper? Yeah, it's not a good plan. I mean, what was that? What was that? The rap song just came in my mind. I'm in love with the stripper kind of thing. Yeah. Well, were you guys dating, obviously?
Oh yeah, we were dating. Yeah, we were.
So you didn't even call her like, I bought a house with my, ex-girlfriend. You just call her a straight stripper. I love it. I love it, by the way. So.
Yeah. Well, I was married to a stripper previous to that too, so there's a lot of lessons I had to learn at that point.
Let's talk about that. What is the infatuation with the strippers?
Dude, that's a team guy, bro. That's what we do. Team guys and strippers go to bed like peanut butter jelly, bro. That's what we do.
I love it.
So yeah, I had to learn a lot of hard lessons like that. Almost went bankrupt from it. It was difficult, man.
Well, I mean, wait a second, man. Like, you got a house with a stripper. I always wonder like how a stripper can buy a house, because
she
they
couldn't
don't show income.
Right, she couldn't.
You can't buy a house with once.
Well, that was the problem, is that it was on my credit. So I got the loan, and then I was like, oh cool, you'll pay half.
Got the loan, but she was supposed to pay for it. And
she was, and then she did, and I put her on the the title, right? Yeah. And then of course things didn't go well. And she's like, well, I'm not paying.
Went down.
Yeah. So then she's like, she just left, and she's like, I'm not paying. I'm like, okay, cool, no big deal. I totally understand if you're leaving, like you don't have to pay on the house. but I need you to sign it over to me so that I can sell it or refinance or whatever, because I couldn't afford it on my own.
You didn't want to do that either.
Of course not. And because I was, obviously a really smart team guy, I was the only one on the loan and she was on the title. So I was just straight screwed the whole thing. There's nothing I could do about it.
Damn, so you had all the liability and you had no control.
Yeah.
That's exactly
that was
what
the worst.
you don't want.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
Everything that I've learned in life is you don't want to own it, but you want to control it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, it was a horrible situation.
You owned it, but you didn't control it.
Yeah.
Shit.
It was like the worst of all worlds.
I love it.
But through that,
but I hate it, but I love it.
Well, that's what set me up into this situation I had to do with the business. So I was trying to pay for the house. I was trying to do the right thing and pay for the house. So all my cash, and it was more money than I made at the time. So all my money was going to pay for the house, and I was in $20,000 in credit card debt from living on my credit cards. As all my cash was going to the mortgage, because I didn't want it to go under. I didn't want to default. I wanted to protect my credit. And, I should have just dumped it, but I wanted to do what
we all have done that.
Yeah, I held on way too long. So I had this idea for kettlebells with the skull on it, and I just wanted to go buy one. I didn't want to create a company. I wanted to go buy one, but nobody made them. I'm like, this is a pretty cool idea. Like I can't be the only one that wants to go buy this. So I ended up starting the process of going through it, and I had no idea how hard it was going to be. Looking back, like I would have totally done a different business if I'd actually thought it through. But I ended up making these resin casts of these 4 different styles of bells that were really cool. There's nothing else like them on the market. So they created a lot of stir and got a lot of attention when I put them out there. And I had the only people that could manufacture, or that I had connections to at the time, were overseas in China. And they're like, okay, it's going to be $60,000. I'm like, I had 0 cash. I was $20,000 in credit card debt. I'm like, I can't pay 60 grand. But I'm like, okay, well, what's the lead time? They're like, okay, it's going to take us 3 months to produce these. I'm like, shit, how much do I believe in myself? How much do I believe in my product and my vision? So I was like, cool,
did you
go for it. Yeah, I did a 3-month pre-sale, tried to raise enough to cover the cost on 60 grand, even though I had 0 cash, and it worked. We got, it went through. Well, but this is like, we're getting, So I raised enough to cover it, and then they came in 3 months, and I remember this tractor trailer's pulling up to my buddy's shop where he was helping me with the fulfillment. And we go in there, and I have 7 pallets of these things, like thousands and thousands of pounds. I pull one out, and it looks good. I'm like, yes, I'm gonna be a millionaire, And I'm like, cool. I'm super excited. Pull another one out, and it looks like total junk. What? So sand casting, you have to use very fine sand, and because you can see the granules in the finished product. So the second one I pulled out, it looked like the sand cast with gravel. It had like divots in it, and it was just like really bad. But they're all powder coated as well. So I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with it? So I pulled all of them out, all these bells, and I had to sort them through. And we had about 1/3 of them that were good and they were sellable. We had about 1/3 of them that were complete junk. There's no way you could fix them. We just threw them right in the recycling bin. I'm like, it is what it is. And we had 1/3 of them that were kind of in the middle, halfway, like they were salvageable, like we could weld them or I could grind it off and make it smooth. But I couldn't get through the powder coating because then I'd have to re-powder coat it, and they're already expensive. It would eat up all my margin, and then I'd make no money on it, actually lose money. So I'm like, what am I going to do with this?
Back from those guys or what?
Oh, I only paid them for the ones that were good.
Oh, good.
I was like, no way. Like, I'm not.
I was ready to kill somebody.
Oh, yeah. I was going to go fly out to China and strangle some guys. But it ended up working out.
Especially when you're broke and you have to raise the money.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like you're sitting on millions of dollars. Oh, shit, I lost 30 grand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. My deposit on it was like,
knock on somebody's door.
Dude, yeah, it was a serious issue for me. And so with those middle ones, the 1/3 that were kind of in between, and we had the CrossFit Games coming up. So we had a booth all prepped there, and I'm like, dude, what am I going to do with these? We fulfilled the orders for the ones that the people had ordered, so they were happy with those. But these ones in the middle ground, what am I going to do with these? So I started grinding on them, experimenting with them. So I pulled one out and I stripped all the coating off of it, welded up what needed to be welded off, made it perfect. Like I'm literally hand filing this thing like by myself, with the mask on, like all this stuff. And dude, once we got to the raw metal, like it looked so badass. It looked so fucking cool. I was like, dude, we could sell these for way more than our other ones. So it took me about a half hour to an hour and a half per bell to get them perfect. But once they were done, they were way cooler than the original ones. So we ended up selling them for 3 times the cost. So it took me a little more work, but we ended up recouping our money on it because we were able to sell that third for way more money than the other ones. And then I found a U.S. manufacturer, and we didn't have that problem anymore. But dude, that was a big thing where I'm like, I have no money. I have negative money. I put 60 grand in this thing. It was like, hey, I'm going to make this work. And it comes in, and just that roller coaster of emotions, like, yes, oh, I'm screwed. Can I make this work? Can I make it work? And then it worked. And dude, it was just me. I had no partners. I had no nothing. It was just me. And dude, that was probably like the biggest like challenge that I faced as far as business.
So you literally make, lemonade out of lemons.
I had to.
That's what you did.
I had to.
If that's not the definition of making lemonade, from lemons, man, that's what you did.
Yeah, but if I had, the same thing though, if I had just been like, oh, well, that's it, and just packed it in, I would have been screwed.
Yeah.
I would have been screwed.
You had no choice.
I had to make it work. Yeah.
But I mean, some of the best times, some of the best ideas, some of the best hustle comes when your back is against the wall.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean, when you, like I said, if you had $1 million and you lost 30 grand, you're like, no, it's a
right.
expensive lesson. But
yeah,
when expensive lesson cannot be done, you don't have money for an expensive lesson.
Yeah.
Then, they can't be expensive lesson. It's got to be like an expensive lesson for the better.
It has to work, like sink or swim, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, I try not to put myself in those situations anymore, but it was, part of it was luck, part of it was people. Like my buddy James was really the main guy that helped me out with all that. It was his shop that I was operating out of. Dude, huge asset. But yeah, man, just been constantly learning.
What do you look forward the most to now? I know you're married.
Mm-hmm.
I know. You dropped a hint earlier. Off camera. That maybe soon you're going to start having some kids or something like that?
Yeah, I think it'd be cool. Like I've never been a big kid person, I've always been like, well, what's the return on that?
What's the return?
Well, I mean, seriously, because like,
how much money will I make with this kid?
No, but I mean, not the money, but like the happiness quotient, right?
Yeah.
So I figured like the first 5 years are just going to suck. And then after that, they're pretty cool. But then I started to think about it like, from a life experience, like what you're supposed to get out of life is like this human traveling through your trajectory of, experience on this planet. I think I would be doing a disservice to myself and probably regret it if I didn't. And it's never the right time to have kids. There's always something going on. There's always, yeah, but it's kind of like we're in a really good position. I have an amazing wife. She's super supportive. We have a fantastic team. We're in a good place with everything. I'm like, dude, there's no better time to do this. So for us, I think it's a good step. I'm still not looking forward to changing diapers. I don't know if anybody actually looks forward to that, but yeah, it's gonna be a cool experience.
You, man. I'll change 3 kids' diapers, and I'll tell you right now, man, you gotta do one of these. You gotta put your nose under the shirt when you do it the first few times, man.
Gosh.
You're like, you're gonna gag, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think us men have a little weaker noses than our women. So
yeah, I'm just committing to that's just part of the experience, and I got to go through it because at the end of it, I'll be able to tell that story, and it'll be part of my life experience. So
how about business wise? What are you looking forward to coming up?
That's actually kind of changed for me. I used to want to get big in business for the money, because for me, money is an easy translation to freedom, because freedom is the only thing that matters to me, because you can have the freedom to do whatever experiences you want.
For sure.
So it's a really like direct equation that experiences cost money. You have more freedom to do whatever, more time. That takes money. So if you can get money, you can kind of get, for the most part, like whatever else you want. But through this journey of learning about being a leader and the team, and understanding like how much more that fulfills me, now my goal with the business has shifted to where like we're making way less net this year than we have ever because I put all our money into infrastructure and people. So even though we're making way less money now, our gross is higher, but our net is down.
Because you
I'm
invested back into your people. You
right,
invested, but I mean, you do that so that you can have an even higher trajectory.
right, yeah. So, but we're taking a hit this year, half of next year, so that the second half of next year and the year after, it's going to be big. So our goal is to be at 300 million in 4 years, and we're nowhere near that, like not even close. But I think we're on the right path to get there. And the reason that I used to want to get there was because I wanted, cars and all these things. But once I had that Lamborghini, I realized it was something on my wall that I was like, I kind of just hung it there because I was like, I'm probably never going to get it, but I have to have something like a carrot to drive me.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got it, I realized that it's cool.
Which Lamborghini do you have?
I had a Huracan.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I had it for like 2.5 years. Beautiful car, and
What color?
it was red, but we
Nice.
painted it. We wrapped it white
Nice.
Cryptek camouflage.
Yeah.
It was so cool. But after a couple of years, I realized that the things that made me most happy about that car was sharing the ownership experience with everybody else. Like there's kids around, like letting them get in it and rev it. No, I sold it about 1.5 years ago.
It's funny you say that, bro. Like I'm just contemplating, with 3 kids, it's you went to my garage earlier.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
You saw the Rari wasn't there, and I told you it's getting service. And part of the reason it's getting service because I don't drive it enough. It's sitting there.
Yeah.
And I drove it, and then all of a sudden the battery went dead, and all that kind of stuff. And people are like, "Why don't you drive it?" I'm like, "Well, first of all, I have a family, right? And I don't really get a lot of time, or just to just drive around and go to the gym and come back or whatever, But I don't have a lot more time, and even then, it's like I don't know, like at this age, I just want to kind of get in my Infinity.
Mm-hmm.
And if I run over a curb, I don't want to
Yes.
think about it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like when a Lambo is a $20,000 mistake.
Yeah.
Over a curb,
Oh my God.
you're just driving on the edge the whole time, like.
Dude, yeah. And that was part of the reason after I got so I have a Jeep Trackhawk now. It's like a 700 horsepower Jeep Grand Cherokee.
I heard you coming.
Oh, I love that car. But once I got that, I literally didn't drive the Lamborghini for 6 weeks. It sat in my warehouse, and I'm like, why am I paying so much money for this car that I don't even drive? And I got rid of it, and I thought, man, I'm gonna miss it. And the fact is, like, I don't miss it. What I do miss is being able to share that experience. But now, through becoming a better leader for my team, what makes me fulfilled now is seeing our team grow and succeed.
So true.
So that's why I want to get a big fucking company so that I can share that experience with more people.
One of our team members last month got a new Camaro SS, and that was his dream car. I came in, it was like a British Racing Green Camaro SS. I saw it, I was like, he was so happy.
Yeah.
And none of our team members, she got one of those Mazda Miata, the new ones, man. And that was her dream car.
Yeah.
So you kind of like win by seeing other people win.
Dude, absolutely.
And that's something like I can't explain, because when you're getting your house foreclosed on, right? You can't think about that kind of stuff because you're trying to survive, right?
Yeah.
You're in a fight or flight mode, and you're not thinking about fulfillment and other people happy because you're unhappy, right? But once you're happy and like, okay, you got food on the table, you have a home, everything's set. The more is not better.
Right.
Now you want to see other people win.
Yeah.
And all other kind of stuff. That's something that I never thought I would reach, because all my life I've been, trying to figure out what I'm going to pay rent or electricity or all that kind of stuff. So it's great to see you, kind of travel the same journey.
Dude, absolutely. But it wasn't until I got past that, like that personal, like I'm not gonna say not worrying about money, but not trying to survive anymore. And now trying to reach that, okay, what does success look like? And then towards the upper end of that, I realized that success and fulfillment are different. And success in the ways that I thought was important before is not going to fulfill me. And I realized if I can build a big company with a team that I love and create a culture and a movement and this world within our company for them to live in and succeed in and build their own dreams within, dude, that's what gives me fulfillment.
One of my favorite quotes of all time, might be my favorite quote of all time, is by Tony Robbins. He said, "Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure."
Yep.
And when you really think about it, I mean, that's profound.
Yeah.
You know, that's profound because, I mean, if you're successful, but you're not fulfilled because you haven't made any contributions, you haven't really helped anyone along the way, it's kind of an empty place to be.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
how many damn Lamborghinis you gonna have? How
Yeah.
many damn mansions you gonna have? How many damn shoes or things you're gonna have? And I've been through that route. You know, I'm saying it because I've done it.
Yeah.
You know, at one time I had 19 cars. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I've seen your house and your garage. You've definitely done it.
you know, and I have a bunch of expensive watches. You gonna come upstairs in my closet, you gonna see I have like 100 expensive sport jackets that I always wear Lululemon anyway. You know what I mean? So when you think back at it, it's like, man, you don't need none of all that stuff, man. You just need to be, fulfilled. You need to make a difference. I would have rather have I been in a better place or grew up differently, because I did that because I was piss poor all my life, and I want to be, for me, success. When you're piss poor, for you, success is the Lamborghini, is the Ferrari, is the closet full of clothes, and 300 pairs of shoes and all that kind of stuff. But when you get there, you're like, no, that's not fulfillment. That's success. But now I want to fulfill. Now I want to see, I could have just, give some of those shoes to people who really wanted, or take that money and made a difference.
Well, I think it's important for guys like you to share that as well, because like I'm, still on my different trajectory, but people chase the wrong things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they think that they're going to be happy once they reach this, but it's because they have nothing.
Yeah.
And I understand that. Like, I came from nothing for most of my life, and it's scary. So you think that this is going to be happiness, and it's way fucking happier than being worried about whether you can put food on the table. But once you get past that apex of like, okay, I'm somewhat comfortable, a lot of people don't make the shift of changing from like what they were originally going for, and realize, okay, do I really want that now? Like, is this really going to make me happy? And because they're chasing a lot of times, especially with Instagram, other people's version of success, or even just one part of somebody's success journey, and without realizing that like there's a whole other context surrounding that. But I think if more people did something really hard, like do some really hard shit, find out who you are, and what makes you happy is going to come out of that. And if you find out who you are and what makes you happy, now you have a roadmap. So you're not just like chasing like, I want that person's happiness or that person's happiness. You're like, no, this is my happiness. This is where I want to go. And once you have a path, then you can find the way there. But it's like any roadmap. Like if you don't know where you're going, the chance of you actually getting to where just what's going to make you happy is almost impossible.
100%.
Yeah. So I think that's the big thing. Like more people should just take a second, figure out what actually makes them happy, not everybody else, not what looks cool, like what really fulfills you inside, and then make a roadmap for your life based on that. Tim Ferriss did a good job with that long time ago with
For our work week?
Yeah, and a lot of people got it misconstrued where they're like, oh, it just means you work less and make money doing less work. Like, no, it's lifestyle design. It's finding out what it is you want your life to look like.
Live life by design, not default.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What will your perfect day be? And kind of reverse engineer for you to do that.
Yeah, because otherwise you might create a job that pays well, but if you don't enjoy it, you're just getting pushed around. Like, you're pushing around your life for this thing that doesn't even make you happy for a few things that you find out aren't what you thought.
So many people go through that in life, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We see it every day. So many people go through that in life, and that's such a bad place to be.
Yeah, but a lot of people aren't even self-aware enough to notice it, and
It's a rat race. That's why they call it a rat race.
Yeah.
You're not anywhere. You're not hamster wheel, running, it's still in the same place.
Dude, totally, man. Yeah.
Well, brother, I really, truly appreciate you coming down to chat with me today. Former Navy SEAL, you dropped out of school, you went and got your GED, you started many different businesses, and you sold them. You tried many different things, you failed, and now you got on your rhythm, you're on a great trajectory, and now you understand now, for being loner all your life, that you by yourself can only go so far. You understand that now you have to build a team. And I mean, talking to you and knowing you just a little bit, I never knew that at one time you were socially awkward, and for one time you were just a loner. Because to me, right now, you've always been a social butterfly and things like that. And that's something that you had to learn over the years.
Yeah, it's been interesting, man. But Another point on failure, I think I found a lot of things that I've tried a lot of things that don't work, but I don't feel like I've failed at anything.
Learned.
Yeah, like even though I like washed out of sniper school my first time through, like that was where I failed, right? I failed to meet standards. But when business is different, like you're always trying something new and then seeing if it works. But I feel like it's just a learning process, and the only time it becomes a failure is when you stop trying.
Yeah.
So I feel like in business,
Amen to that.
yeah, I found a million things that don't work,
Yeah.
but I haven't failed.
But
any
you
of it.
only need one home run.
That's true.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You need
Yeah.
one home run. Like my favorite thing from Grant one time, I saw one of Grant's videos, and he said, in baseball, you get 3 strikes and you're out. In life, you get unlimited swings. So I don't care how sucky you are.
Yeah.
If you keep swinging, you're going to get one out of the park.
Dude, exactly.
You know?
Exactly, man. But you just got to have the balls to step up to the plate. A lot of people don't. They just sit on the sidelines wondering and watching, man. But yeah, you got to step up to the plate.
Don't get it again. Well, Ryan, I appreciate you being on the show.
Dude, thank you so much for having me.
We'll see you more soon.
Awesome.
Hey guys, if you like today's episode, do me a huge favor. Go ahead and leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel, leave me a review, and tag a few friends that you think can benefit from what we shared today. Really appreciate it. God bless.